All right, well, welcome everybody to New England AWI's webinar on AI agents on the shop floor. Happy to have everybody with us this afternoon. Just going over a few introductions and then I'll let Rich take it over. I'd like to introduce Rich Bergen, our moderator for today. Chris Toppin, he is one of our panelists from Chief Innovation and Mainstay Technologies Incorporated, and Justin Dews from PathOpt. They are both our panelists and AI experts. Welcome. And a few of our sponsors, we have today TakeoffBot.ai and iXRender AI, and also our sustaining sponsor, Federated Insurance. So thank you everybody for joining us, and I will turn this over to Rich.
Thanks, Tony. And thanks, Chris, and thank you, Justin, for joining us today. And thank you all who are still coming into the meeting. So this is our second AI webinar that we've done. We did one in February of last year. And last year, we really covered the basics. But today we wanted to get into the practical applications of AI using agents. 2025 was supposed to be the year of agents, and we really saw that, I think, probably especially towards the end of the year, really come into fruition there. But so just want to give you a brief rundown of what today is going to look like. We're going to discuss pain points because that's where really, as business people, these agents come into play. Then we want to talk a little bit about what good data is and good documented processes and how that interacts with agents. And then we're going to look at the role of the AI agents to solve your pain and your, with your data and your processes. We're going to have Q&A towards the end, but the chat is open, so please drop any questions in there throughout, and we will address them at the end. So we want to first talk about hype versus reality, right? There's a lot out there going around about AI. Every day there seems to be a new major release or headline in the area. Some predictions that were made last year at this time are kind of coming into reality. AI has sped up a lot in this last year. But you're hearing a lot of stuff like AI is advancing rapidly. It's in a financial bubble. It's going to destroy all jobs, or it's not going to destroy all jobs, but it will supplement work and create new jobs. So I just want to open the floor to Chris and Justin right now, just to kind of talk about, as business people, what should we do to, how do we cut through the noise and see what actually matters to us?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and kick it off here. Thanks, Rich. Yeah, so every day there's just something in any social media platform you get on. The timeline is just filled with people talking about or mentioning AI. And, I think one of the things that's important to understand is that a lot of the quote unquote influencers that you might see putting things out there about AI are just that. They're trying to be an influencer, meaning that they want people to click on their content for you to come read it and see what they have to say. Now, whether or not they're saying anything that's the truth, it's a great question. I don't know. But I know a lot, just from my own experience, a lot of it is, they're just blowing hype. So I would say, to everyone who's attending today, the best thing that you can do is start to experiment with yourself. AI is something that you can have somebody explain it to you, and you can kind of watch them do it. But until you have your own experience with it and you start to ask questions and ask it to do things for you, ask it to go out and query something for you, I don't know that you can truly understand how it might fit into your world. And so would say start experimenting, start playing with it, have it do things. Now, the next question would be, well, how do I apply this to my business? And again, there's not any sort of wrong questions or answers that you can ask to an AI model, to ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude. If there's a question about your business that you have, I would just start asking those questions, and to understand what is in the realm of possibility. And I know in the last kind of webinar you did, you talked about how to form your prompts and things like that. But I think the biggest thing is just for people to start, put your hands on it. You got to experience it first.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo some of what Justin was talking about around just like the headlines, grabbing attentions. I think that there's a spectrum of like, yeah, there's a bubble, it's about to burst and it's going to fall off the map, to like, we're months away from artificial general intelligence, or AGI, where AI basically can kind of operate independently. And I think that the reality is, yes, there may be a bubble that's about to burst, as far as there are software platforms out there that might not make it. However, AI is here to stay. Automation has been around a lot longer. Those two things paired together, basically creating the agents that we're going to cover today, are very powerful and kind of eliminate the parts of your business, not eliminate them, but reduce the work in areas of your business that you may not enjoy, like some of the back end monthly bookkeeping, or just ways of capturing knowledge from your team and sharing out with everybody. So if you're not paying attention to what's going on in AI right now, you really should start, or you're going to end up being left behind to some degree.
I think one of the other things, just sorry, Rich, I just want to add this just to kind of top on that. The way that I talk about AI to the business owners that I speak with is that, it is actually, we're using it as a tool to lift the burdensome work off of other teammates in order to empower them to do more valuable things within the business, be able to elevate those team members around you into doing things that they may want to do. So this, I don't talk to anybody about eliminating positions. I don't talk to anybody about that sort of thing. But what I do talk about is how do we empower the people around you?
Yeah, 100%, especially for, medium or on the smaller end of organizations. There's still plenty of work and serving your clients to go around. When I'm talking about eliminating areas, it's more of like, if you're an independent operator and you're just not strong in an area, it's a potential where you can hand off some of the stuff to AI. Still need to verify it, but have time to focus more on the parts of your business that you enjoy.
Sounds great. And so that kind of brings us into the pain points. So hopefully you saw that we had a first poll. We're gonna poll throughout the webinar today. And so this one, just want to get a sense from everyone, where is your greatest pain in your business? So if you wouldn't mind just filling that out quickly, but in the meantime, just wanted to, open the question about, what bottlenecks, Chris and Justin, do you see most often where siloed information maybe becomes a choke point, or, what are some of the pain points that you're seeing with your clients?
Yeah, I'll jump in first on this one. So I think being able to distribute knowledge, like in a lot of businesses, you'll have an owner or some of the leaders, or maybe even some of the more involved folks that hold a lot of the knowledge and then it's not documented anywhere. And that just adds a lot of overhead to those individuals to continually ask questions. And this is where AI and AI agents can come in and help pretty significantly.
Yes, so I like to call this the owner or the principal bottleneck. And this is where, and I have experienced this and lived this myself, so I know it to be true. And I've talked to many other business owners who have experienced this themselves. But what happens is, even though some of us may have spent the time and the money to build all this documentation out for our systems, our platforms, for our teams, our processes, and everything, What we have trained our teams to do is we have trained our teams that it is faster to come ask us a question and become the human Google within our organization, the lightning rod for questions, because our teams know now it's faster to go to Justin or whoever to get an answer than it is for me to go find the documentation. Now, the second part to that is not only is it faster, but what I just mentioned was find the documentation. We may have written documentation, but that documentation may be in a three ring binder above the owner's desk that I've got to go pull off the shelf and flip open to the installation process that was written 4 years ago, right?
Mhm.
Or maybe the documentation was built 6 months ago, but it's shoved into Google Drive into a folder that only half the people in your team have access to. And it's 17 folders down into child folders, and they literally can't find it. It's just too hard to find.
And
And
there's 5
so,
versions that are different.
yeah, there are 7 versions that are out there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, well, then yes, people are going to naturally go where they can find the answer the fastest because they have work to do. They don't want to bother other people. And so the shortest path to resolution is to go to where I know the answer is. And I know the answer is in the owner's head. So if I see the owner walking around the shop floor, I'm going to stop him. I'm going to ask him a question, or I'm just going to walk into his office and ask him a question. And what that does as principles in the business is we're trying to get some other work done. We're trying to get an estimate out the door that's due in 3 hours, or we're trying to close a couple of new jobs because we've got a builder coming into our office or whatever it is. And that constant question asking and pulling takes us away from the valuable work that we need to be doing as principals. And so those are the bottlenecks that I see that can be solved fairly easily using AI systems to go and either query that data, help you write that data, help you build that data, whatever it might be. So the bottleneck is one. And then the other thing is, it's like you talked about institutional knowledge, Rich. It's like, okay, well, so you've got a guy on your team or a woman on your team who has been around for 15, 20 years, and you know at some point they want to retire. Well, what are you going to do when they walk out the door? How much knowledge is in their head that's going to leave your business the minute they walk away? And that's a question that kind of makes people think really, intently about what that could mean for the business. How do we extract that knowledge from people's heads? There's another solution that we've got to think about before we start to implement AI systems.
Yeah, so really, as business people on this call, the first thing to do probably is just to write down your pain point. Like, we asked which department had your greatest pain, and then maybe go deeper on that, right? Like which aspects of that department causes you greatest pain or has the biggest bottleneck, and just kind of go deeper and deeper onto that, into your own personal pain. And
Yeah.
One of the things
Yeah.
I always ask is, people ask, well, where do I start? Well, there's 2 questions you can ask yourself. Where do I spend the most time? And where do I spend the most money? And you can start there to start to identify the pain in the business. And then, the other thing that I often tell people when we're talking about AI solution and what's possible, it's like, well, how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? You can't chew all of it off at once. So you've got to go identify what it is you want to solve. One more tip that I can throw out there for those who are trying to identify what the pain is in their business. If you're one of those who gets people coming in your office or popping up on Zoom or on your Teams every day or Slack with questions or your text, start to log every time you get a question from a team member and write that question down. And then every time somebody asks the same question, mark a little tally next to that one. And after 2 weeks, figure out which question you got to ask the most in 2 weeks' time and start there. Start to solve that problem.
Yeah, I think beyond some of the knowledge sharing aspects that we've focused on a lot here, think about anything in your business where somebody is essentially receiving data. Maybe it's like a scanned PDF with information for an order or parts, and then taking that and then typing it into something else, or they're receiving something through mail, scanning it in, typing it in, like anything where it's like you're you basically are paying for data entry, those are areas that you can attack pretty readily with automation and AI.
One of the things
Awesome.
I saw here on the just on the poll results, project management, and my assumption is that the those of you with pain with project management may be that there's no central place that you're managing the projects, and you've got data being transferred from one person to another through text message, through email, through in-person conversations, through Teams, maybe it's WhatsApp, maybe it's Telegram, and no one knows where to go find everything, right? So how do we build even a basic system where there's one place that everyone can go to see where a job is in the job process? And the other piece of project management is, do you have the project management process documented? Do you have each phase of the job documented? What happens at the phase? What starts the phase? What ends the phase? How does the phase hand off from one status to the next, right? Who's responsible for managing that status of the job? All those things, if those things aren't documented and you're having troubles, challenges with project management, I would, start there as well.
Seems like
Yeah,
a good.
I was just
Sorry.
gonna say that estimating is high up there too, and that's another one where it's like, how do you do it today? Like, are you, taking pictures of certain things? Are you dictating and then, transcribing that later and trying to build estimates from that? Like, what is your process of doing that? Because there's plenty of tools now that you can help streamline that.
Seems like a good transition to our next point on good data and documented processes, right? So in our pre-calls, it came up, you wouldn't tell a CNC machine to cut something without a clear program, right? So you kind of have to think about, if you're thinking about, creating and implementing AI agents, you have to think along those lines, right? You have to have good data that you're giving it, and you have to have clear direction. So let me launch this poll too, just to get a sense from everyone about, where do you think you have the worst data and the least documented processes, to get a sense for that. So Chris and Justin, what do we actually mean by good data? How would you explain that to a shop owner who might have, QuickBooks and spreadsheets and think that might be okay? And maybe it is.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One of the main thing is, do you know where the latest copy does it exist of, that spreadsheet, that procedure, anything that you've created? Do you at least know where they are, so that then you can then point a system at it to help build an agent? So there might be some level of organization that needs to happen up front. Maybe you don't have anything at all, and there's definitely ways to today with, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot, there's voice modes. You can just turn it on dictation mode, speak into it what your process is, and let it reformat it for you and write something up that's easy for others to follow. So you don't necessarily need to be somebody that's great personally at writing documentation for others. You just need to kind of like get your words out as far as how you do things so that the system can build it for you.
So I'm going to add to that, but first I wanted to call out, I think it's interesting that the largest pain and the worst or least documented process is project management in our polls. And so I think those two, the data kind of correlates there. And so when we talk about what is good data, and good data in your QuickBooks or in your financial records is going to be different than good data in an SOP, or good data in a job management system, or good data in a project management system. So the way that I would describe good data is if you had a list of jobs and you wanted to show someone how you were doing on revenue versus cost of goods sold versus your markup versus your your waste, your versus your what your final net or gross profit is, and you wanted to show them that on a spreadsheet, could you hand that spreadsheet over to someone who knows a little bit about how to read that sort of document and not have to explain what every one of the labels and rows and columns is? That's what I mean by it's got to be labeled well. It can't be labeled where it's only you who understand the abbreviations that you've put into that document. It needs to be labeled in such a way that you can hand it across the table who's someone who is familiar with those numbers in general, but they should be able to read that. I think whenever you're talking about a documented SOP, how do I do installation? How do we manage projects from one phase to another? The way that I think about that and the way that I talk to business owners about that is that should be structured in such a way that you can hand it to someone who's coming into your business green with no experience whatsoever. And you should be able to hand them that document and say, this is what we do. This is how we install. And they should be able to read that document. Maybe they don't know all the different parts and tools that you use and screws that you use or hardware that you use to do the installation, but they should know generally from that document how you do your installs. And so that's what I would say about good data. It doesn't have to be labeled every 3 sections or whatnot. It doesn't have to have the same kind of content and look and feel every time. It needs to be readable. It needs to be readable to someone else, to another. Can you give it to another human and they can understand what it is you're trying to explain to them? That's when we talk about good data. And the reason why good data is important, and we'll get to this in a little bit, is because with like Rich said at the beginning, you wouldn't just turn your CNC machine on and say, go cut something, right? We've got to give the AI something to read. We got to give it some input, because it's only when we give it good input is it going to give us the output that we're looking for. If we go in with vague instructions, we're going to get vague or output that we did not want. And so it all starts with, we have to start with the foundation, and that foundation is of good data and documented processes.
Yeah. Something to keep in mind with AI is versus like traditional software. So a traditional program is deterministic, meaning, somebody took the time to write code to make sure you get the same results every time or close to the same results. And usually that would break down if it ran into something it wasn't expecting and then give you errors. With AI, because it's non-deterministic, it needs a lot of information from you, not only the question that you're asking, but what format you want it back in. Or each time you ask it a question, you might get it in a slightly different format. So you might ask a question on how to run the CNC machine, and unless you say like, I want it in a bulleted format or a numbered format, pictures or whatever, today it might give you a paragraph or several paragraphs on how to do it. Tomorrow it could give you a numbered list. So there's ways of setting it up, grounding it in those processes that you build so that you get more consistent results.
Great. And I'm seeing a number of questions come through here, and I just wanted to address one of them because Chris kind of touched on it a little bit, but from Petra, so basically, let's see. Agreed, good data is super important. We've experimented with AI in production, but to do it effectively, each employee or department head needs to actively update the data at least daily. With our blue-collar workforce, this is an impossible task. Any tips? And the first tip that I thought of was what Chris just said. You can talk to a model or even just do a voice recording or something like that. You don't have to be in front of a keyboard necessarily, but maybe you guys have other tips too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I brought one out real quick. I will show the camera. So this right here, this is called a SoundCore Work. It is a wearable device. This thing, it's $150. You can go on Amazon right now and buy it. This thing clips on somebody's shirt pocket and it records all day on a single battery life. At the end of the day, you tell it to summarize all your conversations, and now they have a complete summary of everything they've done. And so now the part of, do you have your workers fill out the data, Or do you have your workers just document what they're doing, you wearing something like this all day, and they just send someone the notes or send AI the notes and the AI updates the data?
Yeah, that's an awesome one. I haven't seen that device, so I'm gonna look that one up. That's
Yeah.
cool. I was talking earlier about, using dictation mode, and that you don't necessarily need to be the most magnificent author of processes to get that done. So like what we'll do with clients is maybe they have an idea of what that gold standard, how a process should be laid out. And so we can build something like, a GPT or an agent that says, this is a template of a process. And then combine that with the dictation or even the output from, a device like Justin mentioned, getting that into this agent that can turn it into a reusable process. Like, that's where kind of the magic happens, where again, you're just kind of getting the information out there on how you perform your job, and something is formulating it in a way so that it can be used to inform other people in the business on how to perform those tasks.
Yeah, to those in the chat here, I just saw asking about the recording device. Yeah, I think depending on which state you're in, there are different laws around letting other people know that they're being recorded. However, that doesn't mean that your employee can't hop in the truck when they're driving from job to job, hit the little button on their collar, and fit their voice notes into that in 30 seconds while they're driving down the road, and then move along. Right? It's that simple. They don't have to stop and get their device out and type notes in. They can literally talk into this thing. At the end of the day, they throw it on the boss's desk, and you capture all the recordings, or however the process works. I'm just saying, like, you don't have to like record other people. You can literally just record yourself when you have thoughts.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, even with and I recommend like business plans of like ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, Gemini, not the free ones, because they don't train the models. If you have one of those, you just use the ChatGPT app, you turn on the microphone, you could be driving around for hours between sites, just venting all of everything in your head as far as how you do certain things. It will do the hard work of formulating that into really good data.
Those are awesome tips, guys. Thank you. I think we can move on to, we've been talking about hinting at AI agents and things that they can do for us, but let's put our final poll out there. So now that we know what good data is, which areas do you think have both significant pain and decent data? So kind of, what's the low-hanging fruit in your organization? What can you attack day one? So we'll give a second to get those polls in. So can you guys walk through a real example of an agent you've built for a small business? What was the pain point? What data did they need? And what does it actually do now?
Yeah, actually, I just wrapped up a project with a home builder in Chattanooga, and the reason he came to me was because he's one man operation as far as front office, back office, but he's got a team of installer or workforce that he uses. But his largest pain after we had a couple of discovery calls was that he just took too long. It took too long for him to put his estimates out there. We were talking, 4 to 5 days. He was taking him to turn around an estimate. And he would work on it 2-3 hours at a time. And so total time on that was 12, 15 hours. And it was a bit of a disjointed process, but because it's just him doing all the work, he had been using AI a bit. He had kind of had the insight to go to ChatGPT and get ChatGPT to help him with parts of the estimating process. And he was getting there, but what the challenge he kept running into was that, he would find himself getting in arguments with the AI, because again, not enough good input means the output isn't going to be exactly what you're looking for, right? And so what we did was we did a 3-phase process with this gentleman, and I did a full-blown discovery on his estimating process, and we did 2 sessions, 2-hour-long sessions where I had him take me through everything. that he does. And we recorded both those sessions. We did screen recordings. So I captured all the data, all the documentation that he was giving me through conversations. And we end up building a system to where the first thing we did is we built specialized prompts just for this gentleman, just for his business, that had everything built into the prompt so that when he would get the designs, he could run the designs through the AI. The designs would give him all the data that he needed to back. Once he got all the data back from the designs, then we would run that through another prompt, which kind of compared to a price sheet. So then give him the next piece of the estimating process. And then finally, there's two other prompts. Another prompt that we did was one for when he went on site and did the initial walkthrough with the client. And he would, record, he would actually transcribe, he would voice record into ChatGPT at first. And so we built a special prompt on that to extract exactly what he was needing to get out of that visit. And then finally, we built a fourth prompt for QA, QC, so the AI would go back and check itself on all the work that we had done. And all these were put together with his input and with the desired output in mind. That was phase one. Phase two was we built specialized projects inside of Claude to where we started taking some of those finished documents that we were producing with phase one, and we were loading those into Claude and then giving the AI more templates, examples to work on, because it works really well when you give it an example of the data that you're looking for. And so then we got even better. We got more refined with the estimating process using those projects. And then ultimately, finally, what I built for him was a almost fully autonomous agent where all three of those phases of the estimating process outside of the on-site recordings, it can't do that yet. But it can do, so as far as the design, the estimate, the scope of work, and then the quality control, now all he does is upload the files that he needs to upload, 3 or 4 input files. We upload those to the agent. The agent uses that as the trigger, and then it takes off and does all the other things. So what we've gone full circle. We built the prompts to start getting the data. We use the data to build a more refined process. And we use the refined process to build a fully autonomous agent that does all of those things. And then finally QCs itself at the end to make sure it's what it's supposed to spit out. And then all he does now is spend about 30 minutes reviewing the output to make sure that it's all, what he was wanting to do. So we took his estimating process from a 12 to 15 hour process down to about 30 minutes.
Very cool. Sure, he's happy about that.
It was a successful project, and for a one-man show, what that saved him?
Makes a big difference.
Because he was looking at having to hire an admin person over the next 6 months because of where his growth goals were and what he wanted to do this year in order to get there. And so instead of having to bring on another person to help with that, we were able to use, and we didn't displace anybody. We didn't run anybody out of the business. All we did was we just made it to where, we didn't have to hire another person. Everyone's looking for ways to optimize their workflows. And that's exactly what we did.
Mm-hmm. That's a great example. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, one that we run into a lot, kind of insert your flavor of software, but business receives an email with an order, already defined, the customer knows what they want. Whether that is they're typing it into an email, it's an attachment that's scanned, various number of ways, taking the information from that, extracting it, identifying that email versus other emails this inbox might get, and then getting it ready to put into the ERP system so that the order is queued up for somebody to just look at and make sure that everything looks right before anything's placed. So again, you want to make sure you're keeping a human in the loop with anything where AI is involved, just in case there are mistakes that are made. But, processes like that would take, 15 minutes. And now as soon as an order comes in, the process kicks off, it's doing it automatically. Maybe it takes 5-10 minutes itself, depending on how many hoops it needs to jump through. But that's not somebody doing those things. It's the automation in AI itself. And then there's just that short check at the end, okay, this was input by the automation into the ERP. Does it look good? Yes. Place the order. So just saving time on all that copying data from one place to another, it's just kind of a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think something important here, Rich, is like, let's go back to the beginning of the conversation, because we can build an AI agent to do just about anything in the business, outside of the install process and things that require human hands to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the important thing is, and just to continue to kind of harp on this, is like, you've got to start at one place. There have been many business owners that I talk to that have these ideas that as soon as they bring someone who knows about AI into their business, that every business problem they have are going to be solved in 30 days. That's just not the case. Honestly, these things take time to build. These things take time to work the bugs out of. These things take time to make sure that the output's the right way. And then finally, the human still needs to be involved at some point within that process, not as much as they were at the beginning, but at some point in the process, they've got to still be involved, right? And we're not to the point of fully autonomous agents that are making decisions on your behalf and making them the right way every single time. Like, that's just not a thing yet. If it's a very repeatable process over and over and over again, yeah. But if there's things where there needs to be a decision made, and the guidelines to making that decision are a little fuzzy at best, there still needs to be a human involved. And so, yeah, you can build the AI agents to do just about anything in the business, but we do require good input. We do require the process to be documented well. And we do require that there be some sort of human involvement in the process when we're done.
Yeah, those are great points. And I think to take it a step further too, I think there's kind of a misconception in, let's say we get all those things right. We've got a new automated process, AI is processing, 95% of orders or whatever it is accurately. And then a month goes by and a new AI model is released that handles things differently. And now you're getting different results. So these things still need to kind of be maintained and managed and cared for the long term, just because the technology is changing so quickly. And that's not to discourage use of it. It's just to hopefully illustrate that, like, it's not a set it and forget it type of thing. Kind of, you can save a lot of time, and you also need to understand that that's not the end of it. You need to keep maintaining it.
Mm-hmm.
Great point, Chris. Yeah, because that is correct. It is not a set it and forget it. It's definitely an ever evolving thing. And as soon as something new goes out, your existing process may break. Your output might start being off because the model doesn't respond the same way anymore because they've upgraded the model. So great call out there. There's a lot of variables that still have to be managed ongoing.
What are some quick wins, things the company can implement in the next 30 to 60 days? And, maybe tying that into our poll result where 50% of the people are saying that estimating is the lowest hanging fruit, where they have the best data and a significant amount of pain. You guys think of anything that kind of they can do with estimating? I mean, just one thought that I just had was, if you have a pro Claude account, Claude can go into Excel now and do some pretty amazing things. So if you're still estimating and doing your takeoff in Excel, that's one way that you can, today you could have that working for you. And like Justin was saying, just start having a conversation and seeing what it can do. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a great use case, Rich. And I think going back to kind of what we were talking about earlier around like getting knowledge out, getting processes out, and then having some type of agent that can answer teams' questions, to put a finer point on what types of agents you might want, depending on the size of your business, like employee handbook, policies, benefits, like an agent dedicated to that versus, standard operating procedures, maybe things around marketing. So you can kind of slice and dice it a little bit and get a lot of quick value just from utilizing the information that you already have.
I think one other quick tip here would be that well, two things really, and they kind of along the same lines, but it depends on what you're using. But if you do have a ChatGPT Pro or a Claude Pro account, I would start creating a project folder for each project that you do. And within that project, there's a spot within the Claude where you can upload knowledge documents, training documents. And I would upload your takeoff, your drawings, your estimate, your scope of work into that. And I would say, what I would do is literally say, hey, Claude, inside the project, say, hey, Claude, I've just uploaded all these projects that I need. I'm a millwork shop. And these are the files that I use to build my estimates every time I build one. Help me design a way to use or to input each of these files into you one by one to get this final scope of work out. And just tell it what you want it to do. And you'd be surprised once you give it context, like those files that I'm telling you to upload, it will start to give you a pretty good process that you can start to follow. Now, it's not going to be fully autonomous. You're still going to have to upload files. You're going to have to give it some data that it's looking for, but it will start to give you a process for you to follow. On the flip side of that, Google has a platform called Notebook LM. If you're not familiar with Notebook LM, I believe it comes with any Google workspace account. So it's already, if you're already using Gmail, like a workspace business account, you're going to have Notebook LM. But you can do the same thing in that. You can go upload documents from create a project or a folder of a specific project, upload those documents and ask it, help me start to build a process around how I give you these documents and you spit out this scope of work, whatever it is. It will help do the same thing.
Yeah, a similar flavor of one that we recommend along those lines. So you create a project for recruiting. Now, when you talk about AI and hiring people, there's a lot of things you need to be careful there. You don't want an AI system making decisions on who you're hiring, but it can help inform people that are doing the hiring process. So when we had our new people team member join, who was starting to recruit right out of the gate for one of our positions, we built a project for that position and said, like, okay, here's the job description for it. And each new chat was a candidate. So it was like their resume and their, the personality survey that we did for them. And based on the job description, we could ask questions like, okay, what things stand out for this candidate that I should ask about when we interview them? It can be kind of a primer to help you navigate how to handle the interviews for the candidates.
It's awesome. What are some things that people should absolutely not try to do right now to automate with agents?
Don't put an OpenClaw.
Yeah, somebody mentioned open. I was going to say that. Sorry, I spoke over you, but I saw someone mentioning an OpenClaw in the chat, and I was going to go right there. Do not install OpenClaw without understanding what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
And why is that? I've seen some things, but
it's one of those things where this is where kind of the industry is going, and we will probably see an iteration of what OpenClaw can do. So it can independently do a lot of things like in the background. The problem is that you need somebody that's really intentional on how they secure it to not go crazy and start, either on like the least harmful way, just spend a lot of money, asking the model to help figure out a problem, to like it's kind of, distributing all of your information about your business that it knows out there to the internet to various parties, and could be susceptible to being hacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, on the surface, like if you just go to OpenClaw and you follow its installation instructions and you just install it on your computer, what you're ultimately doing is you're ultimately giving it access to all the files on your machine. And then as you start to, if you tell it to log into your Google Drive or log into your Google Mail, you're now giving it access to everything in your Google Drive. You're now giving it access to everything in your mail. And unbeknownst to you, it may decide one day that it needs to go check your mail or your drive for whatever thinks it needs to do. And at that point, you know, you don't know what files it's looking through, right? It's got access to everything. And presumably, not saying this has happened, but it's you know, it's a threat that those files could end up somewhere that you may not want them. And so there is a lot of there. Now the personal AI agent is coming, believe me. Like everyone's going to have a personal AI agent that's going to be running on their phone, on their desktop, somewhere. It's, you know, probably in the very near future, next 12 to 18 months, it's going to be more of a common thing to have that. There will be people out there who will implement it in such a way that it is very secure and compliant. And so that is coming, but right now the implementation of it is very wild west.
Yeah.
And if you don't have someone who is helping direct you on how to secure it, how to keep it from accessing things that it shouldn't access, you're literally opening it up to your entire world. And so while it's fun if you want to experiment and you kind of know what you're doing, you know, get a blank old MacBook or a blank PC that has nothing on it, and install it on that, and don't give it access to anything. I mean, that's one way to do it. But,
Yeah.
So
yeah, if you give it access to, say, like your main email box that you interact with your business partners and customers with, it can read all those emails and it can write and send whatever emails it wants to. So you just need to be really careful with tools like this right now. And if you're entertaining anything like that, you really need to work with somebody that would know how to safeguard you.
I think the other thing too, and I know we went on a little tangent about OpenClaw, and that's just kind of been the new thing. And there may be a few on this call that have never heard of it. And so the other thing I wanted to throw out there is please pay for your AI subscriptions. Please do not use free ChatGPT, free Claude, free Gemini. Please pay for your subscriptions. Get the $20 a month plan. It's nothing. What that does is that protects you from the data that you are uploading, from it being used for the models to train newer models. And so what that does is that just says that, you know, if I'm uploading something that I think may have some questionable data in it that I may not want others to see, if I decide to do that, then I probably should be doing it on a paid plan. I should probably have made sure that I have turned off the option for that model to use my data for training in the future. And so, I mean, $20 a month is nothing. It's a Netflix subscription. So I would say, you know, if you want to use AI, please pay for it.
Another pain point that's come up out here too, Rich, unless you have anything to add on that last one, is hallucinations. So I think hallucinations are a great point to bring up, and bias and hallucinations are always going to be a factor to some degree. When I'm working with businesses and they're telling me about their pain points around that, it's usually that they're using an AI tool like Claude, and maybe they're not selecting the most optimal model that's available within Claude, because it's not just use Claude. It's like you have Sonnet, you have Haiku, you have Opus. So, and like, if you haven't heard those terms before and you're not sure, then that's where you can kind of get hung up. Like, there's things that are built to give you fast answers where hallucinations can be higher risk, and there's things that will take several minutes to come back with an answer because it's really going through a thought process and trying to iterate and making sure it's giving you a good answer. So understanding the model that you're selecting to help reduce that, paired with what source materials are you providing to help get the answer. And maybe you don't have anything, maybe you're like researching or looking up something from scratch. But if you have any reference material, could be, you know, files within your own business that you want to reference in your chat. It could be specific websites that you want to call out, you know, whatever it is. Anytime you can ground your AI tool in some sort of data that you trust, plus use the right model, your risk for hallucinations and any kind of bias drop dramatically.
Great. Just a couple more questions. You know, getting back to privacy and security, are there any questions that people should ask before they upload, you know, data to a model, besides what we already covered?
depending on the size of your business, you might want an AI policy that your teammates follow. And you say like, okay, we are going to invest in Claude team for our business. So the people that need it are going to get a license. This is the tool that you can use to upload this type of sensitive company information for, like, get that granular in your policy. There may be other tools, like maybe you're using Google Banana for marketing images. Like, that's fine. It's public information. It's not a big deal. You can call that out too. So just really having a policy that's tuned in, that's realistic to how people in your company are going to use it, versus you can't use AI and secretly everybody is actually using it.
Yeah, I was to piggyback off that, what we call shadow AI. And it's the same thing in IT world called shadow IT. And what that means is that there are people in your organization that are using these tools, whether you've told them they could or not. And so the best thing to do is just to have a policy that's in your employee handbook about, if you're going to use these tools, and these are the tools that we as an organization are sanctioning, saying these are the tools that we trust for you to use. Or like Chris said, just go ahead and purchase your team members that want to use it, purchase them a business account, put them all on the same team. That's one way to do it. And for those that may not think, well, no, like you said, no one on my team's using it. Yeah, there are. They're either using it, they may not be using it on their work computer, but they may be taking their work home and using it on their personal computer.
Yep.
And so people that are interested are going to use it. They know that they can use it to help them do their jobs faster and better. And to be honest, you should be rewarding those who are out there right now taking the time to use it on their own. You should not be condoning their behavior or putting down the behavior. Reprimanding. Thank you. Yeah, wrong word there. So I would say, and this kind of goes back to a question that was asked at the beginning about the hype. I do feel strongly that you, as a business owner, we should be encouraging our staff to use AI. We should be encouraging our staff to skill up on how to use AI. It is going to help them, maybe not only in your job and your role in your business, but also in the future. That is definitely something that I would be looking to do. There's a ton of free training out there that all the big AI companies have. So OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, all have free trainings that you can give people how to use a model, how to prompt properly, how to keep data secure, that sort of thing. Send them the links to those trainings, let them watch them. But I would definitely say and it needs to come from the top down. Like if the organization is saying, hey, we want you all to use it, then you're going to get a better and more open conversation about it within the organization.
Yeah, just some other points I thought of about the business plan side of things that you brought up, Justin, too, is that not only is it like an isolated workspace within whatever provider it is, whether it's ChatGPT, OpenAI or Claude, there's more security settings that you can put in place, right? You can turn on single sign-on, you can turn on multi-factor, you can turn off some of the third-party plugins that are turned on by default in there that could leak data. So when you have a business plan, you have control over how your team is able to keep your data safe, right? Versus free or even personal paid plans that you don't have any insight into. Now, if you're, sole business owner and you're using Claude Pro and you've turned off training the underlying model, hey, that's fine. You're responsible for your own security, but once you have more people kind of in the mix, you're going to want that visibility and control around how the environment can be accessed.
Great points. And we're running up against the time. We want to have some time for Q&A, but just one more question. What's a realistic budget range for getting started with something useful? Getting an agent, and of course, it's going to depend on the scope, right?
Yeah.
That's what we always say. But but are we talking hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands?
$1 million. No, I don't know. It kind of depends. I mean, the good news is that at least like from the business license side, if you wanted to run with ChatGPT first, I think you need a minimum of 2 seats, and they'll charge you $1 for those 2 seats for the first month. So you can start there. You can build a GPT that has some of that knowledge base procedural staff answering question type agent pretty easily with that for a first win. And then from there, there's some of the more advanced agents that it's really hard to like speculate costs, but it's not as high as you would think.
Yeah, I think I'll give you a real world kind of point of view with a bracket here. But when I work with business owners to develop these types of solutions for them, whether it be AI training and training them how to build the prompts and build those little systems better, or fully autonomous agent, typically those projects range anywhere between $1,500 and $20,000. And so I know it's a big bracket, but just being real world honest, it depends on the scope, right? You said, Rich, like it depends on the scope, but that's honestly kind of where those fall in my world. And then there's always maintenance that has to be done. So there is going to be some sort of recurring maintenance / hosting / token usage ongoing fee with that. And that can run anywhere, between $200 and $1,500. Just kind of depends on what we're doing. So it all goes back to scope, but I wanted to give a real world kind of bracketing there on what you might expect.
That's a great point about the maintenance. You always forget about that.
But yeah, I mean, like, because Chris brought it up earlier,
using...
like, yeah, the minute a model changes, the minute that Claude comes out with, Sonnet 5 instead of 4.6, and the output starts breaking because the model changed, somebody has to go kind of put that back together again.
Yeah. Everybody lost their AI boyfriends and girlfriends when we went from ChatGPT 4 to 5. So, things change.
Yes. But can I add something on that though?
Yeah, go for it.
Because I think it's what's important too is what's the value of the tool that you're building, right? If you're building something that's going to take your estimating down from 12 hours to 30 minutes, what's that worth to you over an entire month? What's that worth to you over an entire year? Could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the time and what those are, right? And so, I don't know if you can think about this in traditional senses, because there's some value-based pricing that goes into this, right? What's it worth to you? And so, I mean, if it's going to save you $250,000 a year, is it worth 20 grand up front? Maybe, so it depends on how you're looking at it.
Yeah, for sure. We have a lot. I think we answered a lot of the questions that came through in the chat. If you had a burning question and would like to get it answered, it'd be great if you just put it in now. Yeah, Tony says, what is the cost to your company to repair damage done by sloppy use of AI by your staff? Sounds like training and SOPs are needed ASAP.
100%.
Might need cybersecurity insurance for that one.
Thank you, Tony, but 100%.
For takeoffs from architectural plans, could someone on this chat share later actual steps to help train an agent to do it? Are we there yet?
As far as questions go?
As far as putting an architectural plan into a model and asking for it to provide a takeoff.
I think it depends on the models that you're using, because there are some models out there that can read those architectural plans really, really well. And it can take the data from that PDF and extract it and put it into a form that you can then use to build the takeoff. Without seeing the specific PDF and without knowing exactly what goes into it, I can't tell you exactly, what to use or how to do it. But I mean, there are models out there that can do that. Would you have luck putting it into ChatGPT or Claude and saying, here's what I want the takeoff to look like, pull all the data out of this and let me know? You can try it, see what happens. See if it gets you to 90% of the way there, 80% of the way there. Heck, if it gets you 80% of the way there, it's 80% of the work you don't have to do.
That's right.
Yeah. You just made me think too that, we've been focusing a lot on the obvious ones, ChatGPT, Claude, and Copilot, but depending on, I saw Bluebeam just pop up, depending on whatever software you're already using in your business, there may be an AI component to it that could help with that. So I think we're not answering your question because it's a complex question, but there's a lot of options out there. You might be better served using an AI model that is geared towards very specific outcomes versus one of these general models for that type of the architectural piece.
That's great. And we're right at 3 o'clock. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Chris and Justin have agreed to stay a little bit later to answer any other questions, but wanted to end for those who need to leave at 3 o'clock today. We have one more poll. Would really appreciate if you let us know how we did today. Want to thank Chris and Justin very much for everything today. Really insightful webinar. Thank you guys very much.
Absolutely.
For the invite,
Awesome
Rich.
to be part of it.
Great.
Want to take it from there, Tony?
Sure. Again, thank you guys. Great content, great information. Really appreciate your time. Rich, thank you for putting this all together. Jan, our executive director in the background, for keeping things organized and making sure everybody was able to get registered. So thank you. Check out our website. You can go to newenglandawi.org. It's got a list of the bios on Rich, Chris, and Justin. You've got links to all three of them to get more information from them. I'm sure if you reached out to them in an email, they'd get back to you. They've got a lot of good information to share, and I'm sure if you bounced your questions off of them, they'd be able to help you out. I know we didn't get to every question in the chats, but I think we might be able to do that in a minute just to, wrap things up. And again, thank you to all our sponsors, TakeoffBot AI or TakeoffBot.ai, IX Render AI, and our sustaining sponsor, Federated Insurance. Yeah, great program, everybody. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will stick around for if there are any other questions. I see that Gary asked, is there anything that can integrate with a PDF or Bluebeam? Justin or Chris, do you know anything on that?
As far as integrating integrating with the PDF, I'm going to run that question through my head a different way. Is there anything that can read a PDF or something out of Bluebeam? Yeah, all the models can read PDFs. Yep. But as far as I say all. Let's take that back. Most of the mainstream models, the frontier models, as we call them, can read PDFs. There are some models out there that can't. But as far as something that integrates directly into that, you would have to look for something that would integrate directly into Adobe Reader or Adobe Acrobat, or something that integrates directly into Bluebeam. And that, off the top of my head, I do not know. But as far as just kind of parsing through a PDF, most models can do that already.
It looks like he's interested in if there's anything out there that can highlight PDFs. Maybe edit in that way. I don't know of anything like that.
There's probably a specialized tool for it. I just don't know one off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Hey guys, there was a question that was asked a couple of times that I saw in here. What's the difference between Microsoft, Copilot, Claude, Gemini, and other sources that provide paid for AI tools?
I saw that. Do we have another hour? No. I can give you a short answer. So if you are already a heavy Microsoft based business where you have documentation in SharePoint, you use Teams, you use Outlook, you use Word, Excel, it might be worth checking out Copilot first, only because it's one of the less expensive licenses that you can get from a business standpoint, and it's done a lot of catching up to what ChatGPT and Claude offer over the last several months, to the point where, because it has access to your business data already and it's secured, it makes standing up agents even faster. I will say, some of those main headlining tools like Claude and ChatGPT, the experience is a little better, and there's ways to connect it to your data. It's not as well integrated in some cases, and still requires you maybe in some cases to upload information that you need it to work with, versus just it has access to it already.
Yeah, and I'd say in addition to that, as far as comparing Copilot to the others, I'm not a great source of information on that, because I don't use Copilot really at all. I think it's also they're all going to do generally the same thing. But they're all going to kind of respond and answer you or feedback information to you in a bit of a different either tone or the way that the amount of context or data it gives back. Generally, I see a lot of people starting a migration from ChatGPT over to Claude. I've talked to probably 4 or 5 people in the past week that without me even prompting them about it, they just kind of mentioned it and organically to me that they just were not getting what they wanted out of ChatGPT and they're getting a ton of what they want out of Claude. That may be from the way that Claude is intending or Anthropic is intending for their models to be built to be more of the business and enterprise friendly models, and ChatGPT is going to be more of that consumer based model, if you will. So I have seen some of that. It's just my own kind of real world experience, but they're all going to generally do the same thing. And then if you're already in the Google world, on the flip side of Copilot, if you're already in the Google world and you're using Workspace and Drive and Sheets and everything, and you've got Gemini there's a little button that pops up on every screen. Use Gemini because it's already there, right? And you're going to get, similar outputs from it that you would from the other ones.
One thing that's not gonna clarify this anymore is, so you've got OpenAI and ChatGPT that uses the GPT family of models. You've got Claude, Anthropic that uses the Claude family of models, and Copilot primarily actually uses GPT models and is now starting to integrate Claude models. So they have flexibility between models. So it's kind of an answer depending on your business. Some larger businesses have a mix of these tools depending on the business unit that's using it. Here at Mainstay, everybody has ChatGPT Enterprise, but we also have a mixed Copilot for certain business users. So it's kind of not a one size fits all.
One other question that came through during the security portion, we were talking about Claude, and somebody brought up Claude Cowork. Which is brand new and accesses your files on your computers and does stuff. I just last night I had it write some warranties for me. I told it the project information, the start of the warranty date, and it put together a bunch of warranties. So
yeah, I think I'm glad you called that back out, Rich, because I did see it come through. I had a thought when it came through about that. Here's my biggest kind of difference that I see from Anthropic's Claude Cowork versus the open source OpenClaw. Claude Cowork is going to ask you if it's okay for it to access your files every time it goes to access them.
Very polite.
OpenClaw is not, or generally doesn't. It's just going to do it.
Not out of the box.
Not out of the box. Yeah, exactly. Good call out, Chris. But yeah, that's the biggest thing is that every time Claude Cowork goes to do something that's outside its general scope, it's going to say, do you want me to do this? Is it okay? And you have to say yes multiple times, or you can say yes, always allow. That's kind of the biggest difference there.
Yeah, I would say the risk is significantly lower than OpenClaw for that. And I think with Claude Cowork, you have to have a Mac, right? You can't do that.
They just released it on Windows this past week.
Oh, did they?
It just came out. Yeah, I think it might still be in beta, but but it did get released.
Yeah.
And it may only be available to Mac users, the Windows version. But I do
on
know
Windows,
that
and I used it. It just came out.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
So, but also it's just something too. This is kind of a industry talk here, but I think it's kind of it's good for this conversation. The CEO of Anthropic is one of the most known for security and safety around the use of AI, and that's just kind of Dario Amodei is his name, and he is kind of being an outspoken proponent of security and use of AI. You may have seen in the news here just this last week, he's getting into a fight with the DoD about them using Anthropic's models to do whatever they want. He's like, no, you can't. And so I'm just saying that that's the level he's going to make sure that using those models is because he sees the potential of poor use of them. And so it's just something, what I'm saying that for is it's like those models are being built with that on the mind all the time.
Yeah, also OpenAI just hired the creator of OpenClaw.
Right.
And so, they're just, the jockeying for position is just going to continue.
Yeah,
One thing that just popped into my mind for getting started too, and we talked about hype in the beginning and being led down the rabbit hole of hype. But YouTube is a great resource if you find the right people on there that will walk you through what these models can do, and new ones come out what those can do that are better than the previous. And just as an example of that co-work, I saw that something came up on my feed. It was like a 5-minute video how to use co-work, and it was great. It told me make a separate folder so it's not going into all of your other folders, and put the file you want to use in there, and let it work in there and test it out. It's just a great way to get new information and to stay on top of this fast moving industry.
Matthew Berman and Matt Wolf are two of the main ones that I watch for anything new AI that's coming out.
Great.
Yeah. And then I saw Sahardid put in a question about, he said he believed I mentioned a technology out there to analyze drawings. I think any of, like if it's a PDF, and any of the models, any of the frontier models out there, Claude or GPT or Gemini would be able to analyze that to the level of detail that they're going to do it to what you want. You have to do some experimentation on that. And I'm just going to drop a bit of a more detailed solution if someone is of the mind to go check it out. But there is a platform called Llama Parse, LLAMAPARSE, Llama Parse. That's all they do is they parse PDFs using models, and so they have some specific technology around that. You're more than welcome to go check that platform out as well.
One question: the name of those YouTubers again?
Matthew Berman and Matt Wolf. I can paste it in. I don't know if everybody will have access to that afterwards, or we can send it out later, but I can show those links.
So the chat.
Sure.
Another one is Greg Eisenberg. He's one that's got a lot of good, just general business use of AI, Greg Eisenberg. And then I heard someone told me about a gentleman today, I'll have to see if I can find it real quick, who is specifically around using AI in the trades businesses. I'll have to see if I can find it. Yeah, but
another question is anyone currently using AI to assist in shop drawings or QA/QC in the shop or field?
I don't know about using AI to draw anything at this point in time. That would be something that I would probably not dabble in, just because I don't know if there's any models out there that are kind of mainstream enough to do that well. There might be some obscure models that do it. But I saw that about the QA/QC. One of the use cases that I thought of about QA/QC about out in the field is, and maybe this applies, maybe it doesn't, but if you're talking about, I want to do quality assurance that something was installed properly, and the line is up properly. The one thing I can think to do is if you have an image of a proper installation and everything is the way that you want it, and then you take an image of the installation you just did of the same area generally, and you say, what about these two images is different, or is it the same? AI can do that really, really well. Compare two images and tell you what's different. That's one use case I just thought of as soon as I saw that message there.
Yeah, and like the more samples that you have to evaluate future good or bad work.
Great point. Is there anything I missed here for questions?
I think you guys might be in high demand after this program, so all three of you.
Yeah, I mean, happy to answer, field any questions. Like I said, my information's on the website, so feel free to look me up on the website, LinkedIn. You can find me.
And this has been recorded for those that are still on here. We will be sending out a link to the recording, and you'll also be getting a little thank you for participating in today's webinar.
Awesome. I think we can leave it there. Thank you very much, Justin and Chris. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you guys joining us today. This has been an incredible opportunity for our community to learn from you guys and to learn what's happening and how we can use it in our own businesses. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, again, thank you guys. Really
Let's do it
appreciate
again
it.
next week.
Sounds good.
There you go.
Let's do it again.
You might have started something. So,
That's right.
and thanks to all our participants today. Those that jumped on and took a little time out of the afternoon to participate in the program. So, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks. Bye.